Hello, everyone. Today is Saturday afternoon, December 1st. Jim, you're on?
I am, yes.
Dave?
I'm here, Bill. Ready, on fire.
Yeah, Dave's on fire today. All right, I guess we're going to title this, The War's Already Started. I'll just turn it over to you, Dave. I mean, we've been on the phone now, for half hour, 45 minutes?
And I can't shut up.
Don't, please.
All right, let's just back up. Jim, Bill, we've talked about this for a year till we're blue in the face. We all have agreed currency wars, trade wars lead to hot wars. And as Bill said the other day, game on. The game is on.
Yep.
Trump and Putin were to meet at the G20 meeting. The deep state neocons could not stomach that. They had to put a stop to it. Whether you want to call the deep state John Bolton, Pence, Pompeo, make up whoever you want. There's a faction within the United States where you can go back to what General Wesley Clark said. 17 years ago, the plan was put in place. The wars are going to happen, and nothing's changed. And right now, we're in the middle of what I believe is a hot war, and I'll take this through to where I'm going with it. The Ukraine government has provoked an international incident, just as Georgia did when they decided that they were going to split off and forced Russia's hand to go in and basically beat them senseless. I'm arguing, and it's not even I'm arguing, I will post this piece that the Sacker put out. For sake of argument, I think he's one of the brightest military analysts there are. I read his stuff for every single line, go over it 3 times. Catherine Austin Fitz did a great interview with him a week or so back. I would recommend anybody who hasn't seen it, go to the Solari Report, look it up, and listen to it. I'd like to start this by, I'm going to read a little bit of what he had to post. But before I do that, what I'd like to do is just explain to the listeners that for the past several years, whether you want to believe Russia stole Crimea away from Ukraine, whatever you want to call it, there's been an agreement. Yeah, I'm tough on pronunciations. Whether you want it, no matter how you want to go at it, there's been an agreement. If you want to pass through the strait, you give Russia a call, let them know you're coming, and the program goes smoothly. There has been no problems until this last incident. So I'm just going to read you a couple paragraphs, and then I'll just quiz you guys on this. This is from the Sacker. Let me give you the single most important element to understand what is and what is not taking place. The Sea of Azov, and again, don't hold me to pronunciation, guys, and the Black Sea are in military terms Russian lakes. That means that Russia has the means to destroy any and all ships or aircrafts over these 2 seas. On the Black Sea, the life expectancy of any intruder would be measured in minutes. On the Sea of Azov, in seconds. Let me repeat here that any and all ships deployed in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov are detected and tracked by Russia. They can all easily be destroyed. The Russians know that. The Ukrainians know that. And, of course, the Empire knows that. Again, keep that in mind when trying to make sense of what happened. Third, whether the waters in which the incident happened belong to Russia or not is entirely irrelevant. Everybody knows that Russia considers these waters as belonging to her, and those disagreeing with this have plenty of options to express their disagreement and challenge the legality of Russia's position. Trying to break through waters Russia considers her own with several armed military vessels is simply irresponsible and frankly plain stupid, especially considering point 2 above, that they could kill anybody within minutes. This is simply not how civilized nations behave, and there are plenty of contested waters on our planet. Fourth, one should not be too quick in dismissing Poroshenko's latest plan to introduce martial law for the next 60 or 30 days. Poroshenko himself declared that this mobilization does not mean that the Ukrainian regime wants war with Russia. The fact is that the first-line reserves will be mobilized. This is important because the situation resulting from the introduction to martial law could be used to covertly increase the number of soldiers available for attack on Russia's herself. In fact, Poroshenko also officially appealed to the veterans of the war against, and I can't even pronounce the town, to be ready for deployment. Okay.
David, explain what happened in the waters.
Okay. And again, I'll post these articles. This isn't stuff that I'm came to my own conclusions on. I try to dig into this, find out what's going on. As I said to Jim and Bill, ships have been passing underneath this bridge for a very long time. This bridge was the largest bridge ever built in Europe. When this bridge opened last year, Putin drove the first truck across it. It was a giant event. One of our newspapers, the Washington Examiner, a DC-based magazine and website, published an article urging Ukraine to bomb Russia's newly opened bridge to Crimea. Washington Examiner editorial director Hugo Whatever and columnist Tom Rogan are both being criminally investigated in connection with the article. Ukraine should blow up Putin's Crimea bridge, a spokesman for Russia's investigating committee said Friday. If you take this through to its conclusion here, Russia was forced into a situation where they've been allowing whoever wants to pass under the bridge as long as they were notified. They were not notified that these two gunboats and the tugboat were going to pass. Putin was concerned, and this part I cannot prove, there are articles, but we'll just go there for now quickly, that the bridge was going to be bombed. He reacted by doing what any leader would do if they thought the George Washington Bridge might be bombed. They blocked it with a freighter, and then they chased down the two gunboats and the tugboats. When they wouldn't stop when ordered to, we all see what happened. The Russians shot the boat up and rammed the tugboat. They didn't kill all the sailors. Did a couple guys get hurt? Yeah, I'm sure they did. But what did you really expect to happen here? Is what I'd like to ask you two guys at this point in time is, how do you think one of our leaders would react if they had reason to believe that the Golden Gate Bridge was going to get smoked?
All those boats would have been sunk immediately.
Yeah, more violently than the Russians acted.
Okay. Well, so at all costs, the neocons seem to be trying to stop Donald Trump from having any type of dialogue with Putin. We all were in agreement prior to the election that one of the strongest points in Donald's favor was he wanted to, I don't want to use the word make nice, he wanted to have a civil relationship with another superpower, which for all practical purposes is a very smart thing to do.
Yes.
Whoever you want to call the deep state, have at every turn of events, have they done whatever they can to stop that from happening?
No argument.
Jim?
No question about that from the beginning. Actually, the developing relationship in the early part of his administration was very hopeful.
Okay. Well, and again, whether there was, we can go back to the Russian collusion story that's non-existent, that's been being jammed down our throats now for a couple of years. Whoever you want to call the deep state is doing everything within their powers to drive a wedge between us and Russia, to the point where, let me ask, is there anybody in our listening audience who really wants to see a war between Russia and the United States, or United States and China? Is there going to be a winner in that, guys? Yes or no?
No winner. No winner. We're not.
And Dave, as we talked about prior to the call, people who think that they're prepared, if we go to war with Russia or we go to war with China, nobody's prepared.
You can't be prepared.
Right.
There is no way to prepare for that. You know, there just is absolutely no way to prepare for that. So, you know, we're to the point now where, as you did the talk with Greg Hunter, Bill, about the debt problem.
Yep.
Bolton is out again talking about how it's a national security threat. Jim, you're on record stating that you think a reset is going to occur, and they are going to roll out for lack of a better word, a digital currency. Would a war cause that to happen?
Of course.
Yes, it would.
It would allow that to happen with ease.
Because of the dollar would be significantly reduced because the knowledge of our position technologically versus Russia and China is common amongst the military.
Okay. You guys on Wednesday had a talk, and again, the reason I wasn't on the Wednesday talk is, as
Your
I said
hatch
to Jim,
got stuck.
Well, no, actually, where I am, there was a major storm. Power's been out for 4 days. All my local friends who, I try to talk to about preparedness, they all think they're prepared. Yeah, you're prepared till after 4 days of no electricity, no running water. You're pooping in the toilet that you can't flush because there is no running water. All of a sudden you realize that, well, maybe I'm not quite as prepared as I thought I was. And even myself, I have 3 generators, 3 wood stoves. I have redundancy backups to backups. I have so many friends who aren't prepared. What do? You can't help everybody. You could preach to them about being prepared. They look at you like you're a kook. Oh, yeah, you've been saying this forever, and the world hasn't come to an end yet. Well, it didn't come to an end, but we had 4 miserable days. And for me, it's my friends were miserable. I mean,
for
no
you, it was
cooking.
everyday life.
Well, and again, that's why on Wednesday I jumped in the car. Let's say I toured the neighborhood. You grab a weapon and you go look around. Because when the power's out, strange things tend to happen.
Did you get dinner while you were out? Did you whack a deer while you were riding around?
Deer season ended, so I can't say anything about that. Up here, even if you're starving, you're not allowed to kill a deer out of season. But, Jim, you had brought up a point on Wednesday's talk after you guys had talked about the tweet that Donald had put out about these people going to jail. And, again, I hope they all do. I can't wait. That's one of the things I've been saying for years to my friends, that I thought they'd perp walk Hillary and the rest of the pedophiles and Podesta. It hasn't happened, and they all keep looking at me like I'm a knucklehead.
That may change this week or next.
Well, and again, hopefully it does,
We'll see.
because we'll get down to at the end of the conversation about the little FBI raid that took place yesterday at the whistleblower's house.
Yep.
China ambassador warns of dire consequences if no deal, hints at all-out war. I mean, at what point do you start taking people seriously when they talk about this stuff?
I think when they say
these people are not shooting from the hip, so to say.
And they're not speaking without permission.
Bingo. They're not speaking without permission.
Exactly.
That
was an official statement.
That was the scariest statement I would say in my life.
Okay. Now let's move this over to the UK, because the UK was the one who cooked up this whole Russian poisoning the spy story, which still doesn't hold any water, because the spy and his daughter aren't dead. Nobody's gotten to talk to them. If this poison was so deadly, how come they aren't dead? If Putin is so evil, how did he botch such a simple killing? And then that would bring me to the next question, because this goes to November 24th. the story. UK commits extra military forces to Ukraine. It's an irresponsible policy, dangerous, and has repercussions. There's an article on strategic culture. If people would like to see it, they can go get it. I could post it if it's that important to you. But again, all of a sudden, why does the UK give two squirts about Ukraine? Ukraine, for lack of a better word, is a Nazi regime. It was put there. Poroshenko was put in office by Victoria Nuland. You're free to look it up. Victoria Nuland is married to Robert Kagan, one of the biggest neocons on the planet. So, again, read the tea leaves at this stage of the game, people, because currency wars, trade wars, hot wars, and it sure looks like we're heading for the hot war status. While this is all going on now over in the Ukraine, we have an article out of Strategic Culture, and again, with the Azov Sea event stealing spotlight, U.S. gathers huge military force in and around Syria. The U.S. Army, blah, 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 I'm trying to get to the important part. Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group has recently entered the Mediterranean Sea. American, British, French, and Israeli aircraft are conducting round-the-clock flights across the Syrian airspace under the pretext of holding an exercise. The U.S.-led anti-ISIS coalition aircraft are constantly on patrol. French intelligence-gathering vessel is also there coordinating its activities with American warships. Well, for those who have been following what's going on here, Syria has basically taken back their country. And again, everybody could argue what they want to argue. I don't believe there was a civil war there. I believe there was a war there that was funded and staged by a combination of the United States, Israel, UK, and let's call it the Atlantic Council, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, funded, staged, and provoked.
Okay. For lack of a better word, again, we so far are not progressing. Russia, Iran, and Syria have progressed immensely in taking back the country. They have successfully demonized Putin to the point where I don't think there's anything wrong with the planet that he has not done and is not somehow responsible for, if you were to read the Western media. So you now have a situation where you have two fronts. You have Ukraine and you have Syria, and any event that takes place, they're going to pin it on him and make him the bad guy. Would you agree?
I would.
Agree.
If you were to go biblical, where does World War III start?
In Syria.
Yeah, a proxy area where they're both present.
Yeah.
Well, so while this is all going on, the rebels conducted a gas attack, I don't know whether it was like a week ago or whatever, in Syria. The Western media, the same Western media that every time there was a gas attack that they could try to blame on Syria, jumped up and down, screamed, bloody murder, he's a savage, and killing and gassing his own people. All of a sudden are dead silent.
Yeah, there was nothing this time around.
Well, there was from Russia. They bombed.
But the West, you're right. I hadn't thought about that. The Western press really did not have much, if anything, to say about it. And they had zero to say about the Ukrainian bridge. I mean, the Russian bridge.
Right.
They had zero to say about it. I would bet you that probably 95% of our listeners don't even know that happened.
Well, and do they know that the Washington Examiner called for blowing the bridge up? Can you imagine if RTTV came out with a story that we should blow the Golden Gate Bridge up?
Yes,
blow the George Washington Bridge up. I mean, we'd be jumping up and down, freaking out. We literally would be freaking out. So let's move this along to where we're going with this, because this all comes down to the G20 meeting. I posted the pictures over a week ago or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, where Pence was having the stare down with Putin at the Asian meeting. And I was trying to figure out what's going on here. I mean, it's not normal diplomatic behavior. Even if you don't like each other, you try to, like, you know, when you go into a meeting, try to act civil. Well, you would assume so. As we take this through, we had Turkey, when I say we, the United States and NATO had Turkey as an ally. Whether they were a solid ally, a great ally, whatever you want to call it, they are a major NATO ally, or were is the best way to put it. Were. There was a coup attempt in Turkey. Whether you want to believe it was orchestrated by Gulen, who is a CIA asset who lives in Pennsylvania, like Erdogan has said, or not, I am completely convinced that that's where the coup attempt came from. I'm also convinced, and I think I could prove it with enough information that you could go look up or Google it or use a web search. I don't like to use the word
Google.
Use Google. Exactly. Putin was the one who got on the phone and told Erdogan, you got 5 minutes to get out of the castle, because if not, you're dead. He did get out of the castle. He did stop the coup, and he did see the light that he was double-crossed. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. So now the man realizes that he's been double-crossed, and now who's his best friend? Putin. Where are the gas pipelines running through? Oh, Turkey. So you want to talk about a chess game. Putin allowed, and again, I'm just going to use the word the neocons because it's an easier, allowed the neocons to play their hand. He saved Erdogan's butt, and Erdogan came to the conclusion that he had been double-crossed, and who he thought were his friends were not his friends. Would we agree with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and move it along to
MBS.
Call it the Trump card. Saudi Arabia.
Okay. All right. Well, over the last couple of weeks, actually, we can go back all the way. I have not liked MBS from day one. I pointed out, and you guys were all in agreement, that the minute he got power, what did he do? He arrested his cousins, brothers, uncles, cousins, and every other person in the country, tortured them, killed them, beat them, did whatever he wanted.
Shook them down.
And the West never shook him down. I mean, it was like a mafia shakedown.
Right.
The West never made a peep, did they?
Not a word.
Okay. Saudi Arabia invaded Yemen under a previous administration, Democrat administration. And again, I'm not left or right. I'm just pointing out the facts. For the last 3.5, 4 years, however long, the UK, the United States, Germany, and France have tripped over themselves selling weapons to Saudi Arabia to commit atrocities in that country that, according to the record, are probably the worst there's ever been. Nobody cared. All of a sudden, one reporter gets killed, an American reporter, and the whole world's up in arms. Yes or no?
Yep.
Okay. Saudi Arabia would not be doing what they're doing in Yemen unless he had the approval of our country. Would you agree?
That's true.
Agreed.
Okay. So now you have a situation where we obviously have, let's call him a bad guy, for lack of a better word, just, to put a name on it, that all of a sudden we said over a week to 2 weeks ago that we could not throw under the bus because throwing him under the bus would endanger, Bill, what's that thing called where the dollars are traded for oil?
The petrodollar.
Okay. And we talked about the fact that if we threw the guy under the bus, and Trump came out and said it, well,
there's not enough proof.
Right. Well, we can't throw him under the bus because we need him.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Israel needs Saudi Arabia. We need Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia has been playing this game in Yemen that, again, without the approval from the West, including European countries, this would not go on. I mean, if Iran was doing to a country what Saudi Arabia has done to Yemen, would we not have intervened?
They would have been, yeah, they would have been nuked.
Oh, God.
Smoked.
The newspapers, the TVs, it'd be 24/7. You'd swear it was Armageddon. Let's move this along up to present. Now, Facebook, which I can't stand, I'm never on it, but somebody sent me a picture, and it was called 5 Seconds of Truth. Basically, Putin was high-fiving MBS. I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures. They were around. I said from the minute I saw it, has Putin managed to do with MBS what he did with Erdogan? He told MBS that we were going to throw him under the bus. I personally do not believe MBS killed Khashoggi without having approval from, and again, I'm going to use the word us. It's not you just don't smoke an American citizen, cut them up into pieces, and carry on that way unless somebody said you could do it. Similar to the way we gave Saddam the okay to go into Kuwait till all of a sudden he wasn't our friend anymore.
Right.
I believe MBS got thrown under the bus. He wasn't doing anything but what he was allowed to do, told to do, however you want to call it. He got thrown under the bus. Putin and Saudi Arabia have been having meetings. All you got to do is read the headlines. You know, there's been a steady stream of Saudi officials going to Russia, having conversations. I believe.
Yeah, I wrote about that even back during the Obama administration, probably 2014-15. They had meetings. I mean, and they started to negotiate oil deals.
Okay. We talked about when the Petro Yuan was introduced. What was that, last March about?
Right.
Thereabout. That if the day came when Saudi Arabia started selling oil to China in yuan, that the U.S. dollar would take a significant hit. I believe Putin was high-fiving MBS because he allowed the neocons, the West, the Atlantic Council, whoever you want to call them, to play their hand. Putin told MBS ahead of time how it was going to go. It went exactly as he said. They met at the G20. He smiled at him and said, "I told you so." Would you agree that was the smile on their face?
I think so.
Okay. Now, here we are. Let's jump over to China now for 1 second because, Jim, you had brought up China. I had posted an article a couple days before that regarding China calling, basically saying, look, we need to make a deal or there is all-out war. If, and again, this is a big if MBS gets thrown under the bus by the West, which I believe at this particular point in time they almost have no choice. The Senate is calling for sanctions against Saudi Arabia. By rights, they should be introducing the Magnitsky Act against Saudi Arabia, which is the rule that they dreamt up when they said that Putin killed Broward's lawyer or accountant, in prison, which is, again, it's a complete lie. Broward was the only one who wanted to see his accountant dead because he was the one who could spill the beans on what really went on. We are now at a point in time where the U.S. dollar could be attacked at any minute if China and Russia start trading oil in something other than U.S. dollars. We already know Russia and China are trading.
Well, they are, David. At this point, they've already cut deals where Russia supplies oil for yuan or
right,
rubles.
But Saudi Arabia has not yet.
No, they've not. But that's the pin to the grenade right there.
That is the pin to the grenade, is it not?
Yep.
And Facebook is out there with this photo going viral of Putin high-fiving MBS like Putin's a bad guy. Wait a minute, is Putin the one who allowed Saudi Arabia to bomb Yemen? Was Putin providing guidance to Saudi Arabia, weapons, refueling their jets in the air, or was that the United States?
To put this in perspective, Dave, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there that are looking at their clock saying, you know, you guys just talked about geopolitics for 30 minutes. When is my gold going to go up?
Okay.
And what we're trying to do is make the connection. The dollar is about ready to get absolutely smoked. And that doesn't mean your gold goes up. It means the dollar goes down and it takes more dollars to purchase an ounce of gold. End of story.
A guy, Bill, a friend of yours, whose I won't mention his last name, we'll just call him Kevin for the sake of argument. He had sent me something that he wanted me to watch before I, brought up the show notes for today. And it was a piece about directed energy weapons, which I'm, again, fairly well read on. And I wrote back to him that every week I try to stay on the big picture, but it's hard when everyone has been divided and conquered. World War III is underway, and people want to rearrange the deck chairs like it's going to matter. Both parties are owned. This interview, which is the one he sent me, is over the listener's head. They want to know when they get the payoff for owning gold, not realizing they will be lucky to live to see the day. And again, gold is being suppressed for a reason. Everything happens for a reason in this world. And you have to always try and figure out what that reason is and stay one step ahead of it.
Well, David, I wrote about that. I think it was my Monday or Tuesday piece. Gold and silver are not being held down because, for some silly, willy-nilly reason. Gold is being held down because if gold breaks the shackles and actually clears at a real clearing price, which is many, many multiples of where it is right now, that means confidence is broken. And that's the only thing that's holding our entire financial system together is confidence. I mean, it would be the end of empire. Well, just leave it at that.
Okay, so gold is kryptonite to paper dollars.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, okay, so then let's move this. What's going on with Deutsche Bank, Jim? They've not only raided the bank. Go ahead.
BCC, they're the modern BCCI, Banks for Crooks and Criminals Incorporated. They've been doing money laundering for the Middle East for a decade or more.
And the problem is they are counterparty to tens and tens of trillions of derivatives.
And they're broke.
Yeah. Which
just
goes back to what you said all along, Jim. What's the value of a contract that can't perform? Zero.
Exactly. And that's another point as to the Fed inventories that they feel they can sell and balance the books. The stuff is crap.
And let me point this out. When Jim says or asks the question, what's the value of a contract that can't perform, and the answer is zero, what that means is if you've done a derivative deal and it happens to be Deutsche Bank on the other side or GE on the other side, and they can't perform, it means you're naked. You have a naked position. You have a directionally significant position that either goes up or goes down.
You owe somebody something. Okay, you contractually obligated to somebody for something, and the hedge position you took doesn't exist.
Right.
Therefore, you even as a counterparty have just collapsed as well.
Right. You owe something, and you're not getting paid on the other side for the protection of that something.
Well, I'd like to make a simple explanation. It's like putting on a life preserver that you think is going to float you, only to realize that it's filled with lead, not air.
There you go.
That's extraordinary, but that's spot on, David.
That's about right. Yep.
You know, everybody's sitting around saying, I'm protected. It's like I said to you about friends up here. When the weather oh, yeah, I'm all set. Oh, yeah, you're all set. Tell me how all set you are to the fourth day of pooping and you can't flush. You know what the house smells like? And again, that's what DB Bank is. It's a toilet bowl.
It's past history, okay?
Please text to George.
Well, it's systemic. That's what it is.
Well, that's globalism. That's the web that is broken.
Right.
And that web broke in 2008, and it has never been reassembled. The money that came in supposedly to because of that has ended up in a very few elite pockets where they're now the richest people on earth.
And added to that, the money that came in was created from debt. And the debt is very real. The debt doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't go away, and you got to pay the interest.
Right.
So every time Powell ups interest rates, he screws Trump.
Well,
and Trump
the entire world.
Yeah. Well, Trump has claimed the great economic recovery. So he's put himself in a position to be unthrown quite easily because of the markets. And we've already established there are no markets. They're Nintendo games that have been built by geeks and are run by geeks. And there is nothing more liberal than Silicon Valley. So in the midst of being worried about war, how about all the rest of this? And tariff wars and currency wars lead to hot wars. You can take that as an axiom.
It's like watching two drunks in a bar get in an argument, then throw their drinks in each other's faces, and the next thing is fisticuffs, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, let's move this along because I know, Bill, I had brought this up to you ahead of time. You know, I just want to paint the picture for people here that, you know, first off, when we get our payday, gold, I don't want to use the word, I did not get into gold because I thought I was going to get rich. I had made money and I put it into gold and silver because I didn't want to become poor, is the best way to put it.
Exactly.
It's an insurance policy.
It's the only savings account that works. There is no other way to accumulate something representing the years of the battles we've been through called life, except gold. And it's been true for thousands and thousands of years, and it'll be true for thousands and thousands of years to come. I mean, the first thing that's going to happen to Mars is they're going to try and mine it. Look what's going on right now. The probe it's got itself a reverse circulation drill on it.
Well, Jim, if they do that, they're going to have to be funded and transacting in Bitcoin. That's what I heard about a year ago.
Oh,
I did hear that.
Yeah. Forget it, will you?
I don't want to make fun of anybody. You know, again,
all these things starts with science, and it ends up being commerce. Okay. Nobody's going to Mars to find ancient microbial life.
All right, I don't want to get off on a tangent, so I'll move this along. FBI raids home of new Clinton Foundation Uranium-1 whistleblower. The FBI conducted a 6-hour raid on the home of a recognized Justice Department whistleblower who had confidentially submitted documents related to the Clinton Foundation and Uranium-1 to a government watchdog, according to the Daily Caller, citing the whistleblower's attorney. The Justice Department's Inspector General was informed that the documents showed the federal officials failed to investigate potential criminal activity regarding former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, and the Russian company, I'll hack the name, but I'll go for it anyway, Rostom. The Russian company that purchased Uranium-1, a document reviewed by the Daily Caller News Foundation alleges. The delivered documents also show that the then FBI director, Robert Mueller, failed to investigate allegations of criminal misconduct pertaining to Rostom and to other Russian government entities attached to Uranium-1. The document reviewed by the DCNF alleges Mueller is now the special counsel investigating whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia during the 2016 election. I'm going to read you this slow. The Bureau, this is the attorney for the individual. The Bureau raided my client to seize what he legally gave Congress about the Clinton Foundation and Uranium-1, said the whistleblower's lawyer, Michael, and I won't pronounce his last name, adding that he considered the FBI raid on his client, Dennis Nathan Cain, an outrageous disregard of whistleblower protections. Cain, a former FBI contractor, was faced with 16 federal agents during the November 19th raid on his Maryland home. The raid was authorized on November 15th after federal magistrate Stephanie Gallagher of the U.S. District Court for Baltimore signed a court order. The special agent who led the raid alleged that Cain possessed stolen federal property, demanding entry to his home, the lawyer added. On November 19th, the FBI conducted court-authorized law enforcement activity in the Union Bridge, Maryland area, said FBI spokesman David Fitz, adding that the agency had no further comment. Cain told the agents at his doorstep he was a recognized and protected whistleblower under the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act, and that the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz had recognized his status. I can post the article. The bottom line is this is all part of the cover-up. I mean, how much more evidence do you need than this? They have been trying to paint Putin as a bad guy. Hillary is the one who did this, is she not, Bill?
Yes. Yeah, and just so people know, there's another whistleblower that's already turned stuff over, but I believe he's going to come public Monday. That's my understanding.
There's a book out called The Russian Hoax. It explains how the entire plot against Russia is a smokescreen, only to cover up the dirty dealings of the Clintons. And the sad thing, most of it's all legal. It's possible, for example, to buy protesters, as we have seen since the Black Lives Matter fiasco, riots in Charlotte, leading to recent screamers in the Capitol building over the Kavanaugh protest. I'll post an article from Intel Hub when I get around to it. But again, everything we've been telling you is coming to a head.
Hey, David, you were on the call Wednesday. Do you want to comment on what you think that tweet post that Trump put out Wednesday with that whole crew behind bars?
Well, again, I can't comment on that other than what I know has taken place. What our country does about all this is an open question because, like I posted the other day, the little criminal from Florida who runs the pedophile island is back in court. It's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of this, because you now have a lot of women who are going to court and they are going to testify as to who did what, when, where, and how. I don't think America could handle the truth. I think they would set off another 9/11 to distract us from this. So I hope to see these people perp walk. I know they're criminals. The facts all point to it. Where this goes from here, like I said, nobody thought here Tuesday morning we were going to wake up and lose power and it was going to look like a bomb went off for the next 4 or 5 days. You know, all I try to do is, like I said to a friend the other day, prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
That's really the message that, I think we try to get to people. And again, I may be a hothead. I may have I could be a lot of things. But one thing I try to do is independently analyze data and come to some type of conclusion, because that's all we could all do on a daily basis, is it not?
That's what the intellect lets us do.
Well, so time is getting short here. When I say time is getting short, the dog do, as Jim likes to call it, is hitting the fan. There's a lot of desperation running around.
Desperate people do desperate things. That's the danger.
There's the thing that scares me. And again, when you're dealing with people who are incredible chess players, they will let you paint yourself into a corner, will they not?
Of course.
Well, I think that's what's happened.
That's how the game is played.
I think that's exactly what's happened, David. Just kind of digressing or going on a little bit of a tangent. If you go back, those FISA warrants were signed in 2016, and it looks like even Obama's name was redacted from it, so he was signed off on it. My point being, with today's technology, with cell phones, I mean, everybody walks around with their cell phone. So every conversation, every text, every email, and your location is all documented. It's documented by the NSA. And I would just say that the FISA courts, the NSA, the control of the big eye in the sky, if you want to call it that, isn't where it was 2 years ago. And I think that it very well may be that those pictured in that tweet that Trump put out may have forgotten about that and went on and made their plans, made their evil plans, whatever you want to call it. But it's all documented. And for that reason, I firmly believe something really big is going to come down, and we're going to see these perp walks. And like what you said about, America can't handle what they're going to hear from the Epstein trial, I don't think America is going to be able to handle what they're going to find out on the entire pedophilia front. I've said that all along. I think pedophilia crosses the line of even the craziest snowflake.
Well, that's a reach, I think.
What, that it crosses everyone's red line?
No. It crosses the red line of every thinking human being, but you have no idea how outrageous the new snowflakes are.
Well, you could be right, but I don't think it's a large segment of the population. I think the segment of the population that wouldn't be outraged is a number like 3% or no more than 7 or 8%.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're right. I mean, when you have laws that are being proposed in California that make bestiality legal and pedophilia legal, I mean, we've gone into La La Land.
Well, basically, California should join Mexico, and we should put up the wall that way.
Yeah. North and south instead of east and west.
The stuff that's going on in California is something that nobody would have ever conceived possible.
I don't know where you guys are from, but there's some pretty cute sheep up where I live. So.
Oh man. There goes my mailbox, David.
And now
you had to do it, didn't you?
Right.
There we are. Now we're done.
It was only 2 years ago New Hampshire made bestiality illegal.
Yeah. Now I'm probably going to have my front door knocked down by the ASPCA or something.
Hey, it is illegal in Connecticut, too, but that didn't stop a couple of guys about a year ago.
Okay. On the last point, because we talk about desperate people doing desperate things, the story's out today. Pompeo and Bolton say Iran test-launched ballistic missile capable of striking Europe, violated UN ban. Really? I mean, it's just every single day they just keep pushing. And one day we're going to wake up and there's going to be that storm. And all I could say is I hope everybody's ready for it, because I don't think this is one we can get ready for, guys. I hope never to see it, but it would be foolish to think that it's not, history doesn't repeat. I mean, how did you get rid of the Great Depression? Wait a minute, let's do that again? We went to war, right?
Exactly.
And it's amazing how war takes people's minds off a lot of things, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there was a pretty huge financial crisis roughly 10 years before that started.
Well, 9/11 erased a lot of criminal investigations into the dot-com bubble, into
the $2.3 billion that the paltry $2.3 billion that the Pentagon couldn't find.
Trillion or
$21
billion?
trillion.
21 trillion.
Now we're talking 21 trillion.
Yeah, it's an accounting mistake, a plug.
So, again, I hope people are learning to read tea leaves, because you have to. You have to start reading the tea leaves. If you believe the Western media, you're probably being hoodwinked. Nothing is said.
No, you are being hoodwinked.
Well,
not probably, David. You are being hoodwinked. You got to think for yourself. You need to dig for your own information that not only is verifiable but makes sense. And you need to make your own. You need to use your own brain to connect the dots. Because listening to it doesn't matter. MSNBC, CNN, Fox, right, left, it doesn't matter.
It's all propaganda.
Yes.
Just depends which way.
And that's the divide and conquer part of it.
Yeah, there's no news there anywhere.
Well, on that note, guys, we'll see if we make it till next week.
You've informed more people of important news on this broadcast than all of the news entities for the last 5 years or more.
Well, David, that cold shower you took before the call seems to have worked.
Didn't work.
Yeah. They need to put me in I need to go on a Thorazine drip, to be perfectly honest. Ask my wife.
Don't worry. We're all going to be re-educated just that way. Okay?
Well, hey, Dave, I'd ask her, but I'm afraid to talk to her right now because she took your New York Times article, and I wouldn't want to be you tonight.
Your background's Ukrainian?
Yes, I am Ukrainian, and that pisses me off.
After my wife passed away, I figured, after a couple of years...
Did they stop off in Italy on the way to the U.S.?
No, actually, my mother married an Italian, so you've got the absolute worst of the worst two going.
Let's not get into names here. You're going to have me in Tel Aviv, okay?
Right. But just for the record, here was the opinion piece that I was looking for in the New York Times. I couldn't find it, so I blamed it on my wife, which is what I always do.
Yeah, and it was your fault after all.
Well, maybe it was, but I won't take
it was. She's probably standing right there.
You're in trouble.
Right there.
Okay?
She's
You're
got
in trouble.
a giant steak knife grinning at me.
Okay. I was going to tell a story, but I won't. I just got wired.
The headline of this article is it's an opinion piece in the New York Times, which is the mouthpiece of the deep state. And we won't, and again, I talked about before the call who I thought this all leads back to, but I won't. Russia attacked international law in Ukraine. International law? What are you talking about? For the last 4 years, every single boat through there has gotten the okay to go through. Nobody's been turned down. I just want to know you're cutting through my yard. And now the New York Times, all of a sudden, who couldn't get out of their way to save the Yemenis, where there's millions of them dying, all of a sudden, because Putin took out 3 boats that he thought legitimately were going to try and blow the bridge up, and all of a sudden, he's the world's bad guy again. He's Hitler. You know, we've listened to these stories throughout history. Throughout history, they demonized, you know, I just finished watching a series that James Corbett did on World War I. It's a 3-part series. Anybody who wants to look it up on the internet, it's for free. It's unbelievable. And
James Corbett dots his I's and crosses his T's with perfection.
With perfection. And again, anybody doesn't know how the United States sent a giant cruise ship full of people but loaded with ammunition that Germany told us they were going to sink if we did it. And we did it because it was a way to get the country into World War I. Was it not?
No, exactly.
You know, so come on. I mean, how many times can you play the same trick on me before I sit here and say to myself, oh, I see that trick coming again? So, be prepared.
Cutting through people's yards is dangerous, Dave.
Bingo.
No, I'm going to tell you a personal story, then we can cut out. Just before Thanksgiving, a couple years ago, I used to ride this, I called it the water line. It was a water easement that's about 50 yards wide. It goes between ranches, and it's probably about, 3-4 miles long. And I was able to get there through just a vacant lot, and that got closed off, and I rode up to a guy that I knew. I talked to him, a dozen times, and asked him if I could cut through the little teeny tiny corner of his lot. Long story short, his son came out and shot at me 4 times on a horse bareback. So even asking if you can cut through somebody's property could be dangerous.
Well, again, and all I've got to say is the stories that you get out of the Western media, oh, my God, it's like I'll post several articles on this. I'll just title them, you know, make your own decisions, but
they don't make sense.
Yeah, but you've got to back up what's been spoken today has to be posted because nobody will believe it.
Yeah, no, I'll send the post.
Yeah, and
guys,
post the story on the ships because, like I said, probably 90-95% of listeners hadn't even heard the story because it didn't make the news.
Hey,
well, and when
I couldn't understand that.
What's that, Jim?
Ferdinand got sorry.
No, what did you say, Jim?
No, I said that I think you're even high. I've got relatively good contacts. Okay, I didn't know what happened with those warships and the.
Well, you knew it happened. You didn't know why.
Well, I knew what happened, yeah, but I couldn't figure out why. I didn't place it right.
I'll get this stuff posted. I'll put it up. It'll be up for tomorrow. So
I feel I got a lot of information. Thank you very much, David.
All right, guys, have a great weekend.
I certainly will. I'm sitting in front of my wood burning stove. I'm wearing a 44, and I've got enough dried food to take me into the next life.
Have a great weekend, guys.
I'll see you guys.
All right, bye.